When a billionaire's wife secretly opened a shelter for battered women, she knew her husband would be furious. What she didn't know is how far he'd go to destroy it. Chandelier above the long, lacquered mahogany table cast soft golden halos over imported china and untouched foie gras. It was a Tuesday, and in the Westchester mansion of Gregory Halston, hedge fund titan, media darling, self-made billionaire, Tuesdays meant silence and presentation. The staff knew not to speak unless spoken to. His wife Elena knew to wear something tasteful but not too bright, knew to smile just enough, and never bring up certain topics. That night she broke 3 rules. Elena, once a gallery curator with dreams of restoring forgotten art in war zones, now spent her days sipping Perrier and managing flower arrangements. She had married Gregory 12 years ago, seduced by the brilliance in his eyes and the conviction in his voice. She didn't see the cracks until they'd already been sealed in marble. Gregory carved into his filet mignon without looking up. So, the second quarter projections exceeded expectations. I might take the board to St. Bart's for a retreat. Lovely, she replied, though she hated St. Bart's. He didn't ask about her day, he never did. She waited until the wine had softened the hard edges of his mood, then said carefully, I've started volunteering. He paused, fork midair, volunteering. At a women's shelter in Brooklyn, just twice a week. Her throat tightened, it's grounding. Gregory's mouth twisted. You mean pitying broken people makes you feel better about yourself? I mean, it reminds me of who I used to be, she said, voice low, before all this. He pushed his plate away. We donate to causes already. You don't need to play Mother Teresa, and you certainly don't need to be gallivanting around Brooklyn. It's not about money, Greg. His gaze sharpened. Everything's about money, you just forgot that. That night, after he left to meet his lawyer for cigars and brandy, Elena sat in her walk-in closet, knees drawn up, surrounded by shoes that had never touched dirt. She stared at the photo taped inside the closet door, a Polaroid of her younger self, laughing, cheeks flushed from wind and wine on a street corner in Florence. No jewelry, no designer, anything, just joy. The next day, she returned to the shelter. But she didn't stop there. Within weeks, she quietly funneled part of her monthly allowance, nearly 10 grand Gregory gave her for incidental expenses, into a separate account. She opened a shell foundation, nothing flashy, no names, just the Blue House Initiative, a nod to the color of the safe haven the women came to at night, often bloodied and trembling. She hired a lawyer, quiet, discreet. She met him in diners and cheap coffee shops, wearing sunglasses and pulling her hair into ponytails like she was playing spy. She felt alive for the first time in years. By winter, she'd moved 5 women and their children into temporary housing. One of them, Samira, hugged her so tightly Elena's ribs ached. You saved me, she whispered. Elena smiled, blinking back tears. No, you saved yourself, I just opened a door. But doors swing both ways. One evening in December, Gregory came home early. She was on a call in the study, her voice calm, collected, speaking about routing donations through vetted accounts. He stood in the hallway just long enough to understand. Then he walked in. What the hell is going on, Elena? She froze, phone still to her ear. The donor on the other end asked, Elena, are you still there? Gregory's face was unreadable, but his eyes burned. Hang up now. She did slowly. I told you, he said, stepping closer, not to do this. She swallowed. You told me not to feel. I didn't listen to that either. There was a silence so deep it swallowed the tick of the antique clock. Then he turned on his heel and walked out. That night he didn't come home. And for the first time in their 12-year marriage, Elena didn't check her phone. She just opened her laptop and sent a wire transfer, enough to buy the old bakery next to the shelter, her shelter. The war had begun. The bakery smelled like burnt sugar and rot. The awning was torn, the brick stained with years of smoke and neglect. But Elena saw something else. She saw the playroom she'd design upstairs, the counseling rooms she'd tuck behind the pantry. She saw a kitchen humming with warmth and safety and the low thrum of a second chance. The realtor didn't recognize her, and she preferred it that way. No diamond studs, no chauffeur, just boots and a jacket that still carried the scent of her old dog, long gone now. This place is a money pit, the woman warned, waving a clipboard. What do you want it for anyway? Lena smiled. Hope. The woman blinked. Hope. Yeah, she said softly, a place where women can start over, quietly. You paid in cash. Meanwhile, Gregory was circling. He didn't rage, not yet, that wasn't his way. He withdrew, canceled a trip to Monaco, met with their accountant, subtly froze one of their joint accounts. When Elena tried to buy materials for the bakery, her card was declined. That night, he called her to the sunroom, where the city twinkled in the distance like a promise neither of them could remember. You're embarrassing me, he said flatly. You're embarrassed by charity? She asked, incredulous. I'm embarrassed by the secrecy, the sloppiness. Do you know how this looks? She folded her arms. To who? Your partners, your poker friends. Gregory stood, adjusting the cuff of his shirt. You don't understand how delicate things are right now. No, she said, fire blooming in her chest. You don't understand how delicate they are, the women, the kids, the ones you pretend don't exist. He exhaled slowly. I built everything we have. I protected you from the ugliness of the world. She stepped closer. You built walls and they turned into a prison. A beat passed, then almost coldly, if you keep this up, I'll have no choice but to go public. You smear me in the press? She asked. I protect what's mine. She didn't cry, not then, but later, alone in her car outside the bakery, she let her forehead rest against the steering wheel and whispered, what am I doing? Samira knocked on her window 5 minutes later, holding 2 cups of diner coffee and a smile that said, you are not alone. In the weeks that followed, Elena moved fast. She found allies, a retired architect who volunteered to draft plans, a quiet teenage boy who'd been kicked out for coming out to his parents and now painted murals like stained glass across crumbling walls. She used burner phones, tracked expenses by hand, dodged calls from Gregory's lawyer. He sent a cease and desist. She burned it. But pressure was mounting. The media sniffed a story. One tabloid posted a blurry photo of Elena entering the bakery, captioned, Mrs. Billionaire moonlights in slum. That night, a photographer tried to tail her. She lost him in the Bronx by ducking into a corner store. Gregory called the next morning. You're ruining both of us. No, she said calmly, I'm rebuilding me. Silence. Then you leave me no choice. Elena knew something was coming, she just didn't expect it to be Daniel. Her younger brother, estranged, addict, last seen 5 years ago when he stole from her jewelry box during a Christmas party. And now suddenly he was clean, sober, suited, Gregory's new project. When she saw him walk into the sunroom behind her husband, her chest hollowed out. Lena, Daniel said softly, can we talk? You're working with him. I want to help. She looked between them. You want to buy my silence with family. Gregory stepped forward. He believes in structure like I do. You're spiraling. You need someone who knows how to betray me, she snapped. Daniel flinched. I was wrong back then, but I'm not the same. And this thing you're doing, it's not safe, not the way you're going about it. Elena turned to Gregory. You think sending my brother will make me stop? I think you're about to lose everything, he said, and I won't stop it. She looked back at Daniel, eyes full of 1,000 tiny heartbreaks. Then you're both already too late. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, Elena sat on the bakery's old tile floor, back against a wall that still reeked faintly of grease, knees hugged tight. Outside, the city's sirens came and went like breathing. Inside, everything she had once counted on Gregory's protection, Daniel's loyalty, felt like paper, damp, curling at the edges. But come morning, she was building again. The renovation began in earnest. Volunteers poured in, not because they owed her anything, but because she listened. Because when the local plumber told her his daughter ran from a bad man and ended up in a worse shelter, Elena asked for her name. When a retired school teacher donated cots, Elena sat with her for an hour just to ask about the children she used to teach. People noticed that kind of thing. The bakery began to change, brick by brick, room by room. But Gregory hadn't vanished. No, he was still watching with the quiet, coiled patience of someone who knew lawsuits like war songs. His silence was strategy. One day, Elena returned to find an envelope taped to the new front door. Inside was a single photograph of her from 10 years ago. In a hotel suite in Milan, standing too close to a man she once admired, her old boss from her gallery days. Nothing explicit, but enough to be twisted. Written on the back, think carefully before I do. She closed her eyes, stomach tight. Gregory didn't bluff. That night, she met Daniel at the old pier on the East River. He was already there, cigarette dangling from fingers that still shook slightly. I didn't send the photo, he said quickly. I didn't know he. Stop, she said, staring at the water. I don't need you to explain him to me. I need to understand you. Daniel exhaled smoke slowly. I'm tired of owing everyone, of being the screw-up. This felt like a shot at redemption. Redemption isn't bought, she said, it's built. He nodded, eyes suddenly glassy. I miss Mom. I do too. For a moment, they were just siblings again, grieving different versions of the same woman, wishing for something soft to hold onto. Then Daniel said, Gregory's planning a press leak. He has a journalist lined up, says he'll make it look like a mental break, that you're spiraling. Elena laughed, sharp, humorless. Of course he is, because women doing anything bold must be crazy. She paused. Then I'll go first. The next morning, Elena booked a press conference. Not the glamorous kind, no velvet ropes or catered buffets, just a small nonprofit co-working space downtown, 3 rows of chairs, a podium borrowed from a school. She stood in front of a scattering of reporters and said, "My name is Elena Halston, and yes, I'm married to a billionaire, but I've seen things money can't fix. I've held hands with women whose husbands push them downstairs and children who flinch when doors slam." Cameras clicked. "I didn't ask for permission to start this shelter because survival doesn't wait for approval. I've made mistakes, I've lied, I've kept secrets, but never once did I stop showing up for the people who needed me." She held up the photo Gregory had sent. This is from a lifetime ago. I'm not ashamed of it. I was lost. I'm not anymore." She stepped down and walked into a media firestorm. The coverage was brutal. Tabloids foamed. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's wife goes rogue." One anchor mocked her outfit. Another speculated about affairs. But something else happened too. People started sending money. Donations poured in, small, quiet, stubborn ones. Single moms sending $10. Old women in retirement homes mailing checks with shaky handwriting. Notes that said, "I see you." Even more powerful were the stories, hundreds of them. Emails, letters, whispered messages through volunteers, all from women who had suffered, endured, rebuilt, women who needed the kind of place Elena was building. The bakery transformed, walls painted, beds made, showers running hot, a garden sprouting from the cracked asphalt in the back. The blue house was alive. But just when it seemed the tide was turning, Gregory made his move. He filed for divorce and petitioned for full financial control. The lawsuit named her emotionally unstable, reckless with funds, a danger to herself and others. It cited her unauthorized use of marital assets and neglect of social obligations. Elena stared at the papers in her hands. And then she did something no one expected. She called a press conference of her own. Not for defense. For offense. The second press conference wasn't held in a building. It was held outside the bakery beneath a scaffolding half-painted in front of the mural that the teenage artist Matteo had finished just that morning, a woman made of broken porcelain, light spilling through her cracks like fire. Elena stood in front of it with no makeup, no stylist. Her voice was steady, her spine straighter than it had been in years. "I didn't come here to fight my husband," she began. "But he declared war, and when someone tries to erase your name from your own life, you have 2 choices, vanish or speak louder." She held up the divorce papers. "This is what power looks like when it's scared, when it's used to getting its way. But let me tell you something, I'm not afraid of starting over, I'm afraid of staying silent." Behind her, dozens of women stood, not as props, as witnesses, survivors, volunteers, neighbors, even Daniel standing off to the side, arms folded, jaw tight. The media spun wild. Talk shows dissected her every sentence. One anchor said she was reckless but radiant. Another called her a symbol of a new kind of defiance. Gregory remained silent for now, but whispers leaked. A mistress, secret accounts, rumors he was moving assets offshore. Elena didn't chase them, she stayed grounded. The bakery opened its doors. Not to customers. To people. The blue house became real. Samira started working part-time. Matteo began teaching art classes to kids in the evenings. A local chef donated food. A trauma counselor offered pro bono therapy. Then the unthinkable happened. One night, a black SUV pulled up outside. Gregory stepped out. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, like he'd come straight from a negotiation, but not for stocks, for something more fragile. "I want to talk," he said. She didn't move. "There's nothing left to threaten." "I'm not here to threaten." She crossed her arms. "Then say what you came to say, fast." He looked around, eyes catching on the mural, the lights in the windows, the scent of dinner cooking inside. "You did this," he said, voice unreadable. "Yes. It's real." She said nothing. "I didn't think you'd get this far," he admitted. "I thought it was a phase, something to punish me." She laughed once. "You still think this is about you?" He looked tired, older, smaller somehow. "You made me look like a monster," he said. "You are a monster, Greg, just a polished one." He flinched, just barely. "I didn't come for forgiveness." "Good," she said, "because you're not getting it." He reached into his coat pocket and handed her an envelope. Inside withdrawal papers, he was dropping the suit, surrendering financial control. No media statement, no hush money, just gone. I don't want to be the villain anymore, he said. Then stop acting like one. He nodded, then paused. She would have been proud, he said. Elena looked at him sharply. Who? Your mother. Her breath caught. Don't speak about her. I'm not trying to manipulate you, he said softly, just telling the truth, something I haven't done in a long time. He turned to go. She didn't call him back. He just watched. In the weeks that followed, the bakery became a storm shelter, not from weather, but from life. Women came, bruised and brilliant, and found their feet. Children laughed in rooms that used to reek of despair. Elena hosted community nights, lectures, potlucks, art shows, no velvet ropes, just people. Daniel started helping full-time, quietly, earnestly. He still had tremors in his hands, but he showed up every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, sweeping, painting, fixing. One night after a long shift, he asked her, "Do you think I'm redeemable?" She leaned back against the wall, eyes soft. "You already are, you just haven't believed it yet." He didn't answer, just nodded, eyes misting. The next morning, someone left a package at the front step. No note. Inside, a check. $200,000. The name on the account. Anastasia Ray. Elena's old mentor, the woman who'd once told her she had too much heart and not enough edge for the art world. There was a handwritten line at the bottom of the check. I was wrong. This is the only kind of art that matters. Elena cried for a long time that day. Not from fear. From the overwhelming ache of being seen. Spring came early that year. The bakery windows steamed every morning from fresh loaves and laughter. The garden in the back, once just dirt and broken glass, now bloomed with marigolds and mint. Children chased each other between rows of basil. The women grew stronger. They began to dream out loud. But Elena knew peace was borrowed time. One morning, as she opened the front door, she saw the fire inspector waiting with 2 officers and a clipboard. Routine check, he said, but his voice was too flat, too rehearsed. Inside, they scoured everything, asked questions that felt more like traps, checked permits, fire extinguishers, exit routes. Elena knew it wasn't random, someone had called it in. Later that week, she got the citation, unsafe for public use. Repairs estimated at $50,000. She stared at the letter in her hands, chest tight. It wasn't the money, it was the message. You're not untouchable. Gregory had said he'd withdrawn. Maybe it wasn't him. But someone still wanted her shut down. She called Daniel, who came over in under 10 minutes. We'll fix it, he said, jaw set. They're just playing dirty now. That night, Elena stood outside alone, watched as the wind fluttered the mural, light flickering behind stained glass colors. She thought about quitting. But the next day, something unexpected happened. A woman she'd never met walked in, holding a velvet purse and wearing clothes from another era. I'm Nora Hammond, she said, her voice sharp like old glass. I read about you. I lived through my own kind of war. My husband never hit me, but he erased me, just as slow, just as cruel. Elena didn't speak. Nora opened the purse. Cashier's check. $50,000. I made this from penny stocks and bad advice, she said, but I never got to use it for anything that mattered, until now. Elena took it, trembling. Why me? Nora smiled, because you didn't beg, and you didn't back down. With the repairs covered, the blue house pushed forward. They painted fire exits in neon green, hired a licensed inspector, took pictures of every improvement, passed reinspection by a hair. But the attacks didn't stop. One night, someone keyed her car. Another, a fake Yelp review, claimed the shelter was a front for drugs. The worst came 2 weeks later. A woman showed up, blood on her sleeve, baby in her arms, breathless. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered. Elena took her in. Let her sleep in the laundry room with a space heater and blankets. The next day, 2 plainclothes officers showed up asking for her. Elena met them outside. She's safe now, she said. You can't take her. They weren't amused. She's wanted on a domestic charge. From who? Elena demanded. Her husband, the taller one said, claims she assaulted him. Elena stared at him. Did he mention the bruises on the baby? They didn't answer. Later that night, the woman, Carla, told her the truth. Her husband was a city prosecutor, powerful, connected, and furious she'd left. Elena felt her stomach turn. The war wasn't just hers anymore. It never had been. She called a journalist she trusted, a young woman who'd covered the original press conference and hadn't twisted her words. I want to talk, Elena said, about everything. They met in a park. Elena wore no makeups, brought no lawyer. She told her about Gregory, about the bakery, about the threats, about Carla, about the way power chases silence. 2 days later, the article dropped. One woman's fight against the quiet violence. It went viral. Elena received thousands of messages, offers, donations, threats too, but more love than hate. Even celebrities started posting. Then the real twist came. Carla's husband was put on leave. An ethics investigation was launched. And Elena got a call. From Gregory. I didn't do this, he said, voice strained. I swear. I believe you, she said. A pause. You really built something, he murmured. Yes, she said, and you tried to destroy it. I was scared, he admitted, that you'd stop needing me, that you'd matter more than I did. Elena closed her eyes. I never needed your money, I needed your belief. Silence. I'm sorry, he said. And somehow not for him but for herself, she said, I forgive you, but I'm not coming back. I know. Then he added something soft, almost broken, I miss the woman you were. She replied, so do I, that's why I had to become someone else. Spring bled into summer, and the blue house pulsed with life. Walls once covered in mildew now held children's drawings, scrawled dreams in crayon and charcoal. The bakery kitchen hummed with volunteers baking bread, teaching life skills to women who had been told for years they were good for nothing. Elena walked those halls like a mother in a house she built with her own hands, but every day it still surprised her, that she'd made this, that it hadn't crumbled yet. Still, the deeper you dig into hope, the more ghosts you unearth. It began with a letter. No stamp, no return address. Just her name on the front in faded ink. Inside, one photograph and a note. The photo was of a woman Elena hadn't seen in over 2 decades. Her own mother. But younger, standing in front of a rundown building in rural Ohio, a shelter. The note was written in blocky, careful print. You tried to, thought you should know. Elena sat down hard on the cold floor of her office. Her hands trembled. Her mother had never spoken of this. Elena had always believed she'd given up too soon, retreated into wine and detachment after her father left. But now this? She stared at the photo until the image blurred with tears. Daniel was the one who found her there. She never told me, she whispered. He took the photo, eyes wide. What is this? She tried to build something just like this, before she got sick, before she gave up. He sat beside her, or maybe she didn't give up, maybe she just couldn't win. They were silent for a long time. Then he asked, do you want to go? To Ohio. To see what she left behind. She nodded. The trip was quiet. 3 days later, they drove through cornfields and rusted fences to a crumbling building with a weather-worn sign, Margaret's house, boarded up, dead ivy clinging to the sides, but it was still standing. Inside, dust blanketed everything, but the bones of the place still spoke, bunk beds, a cracked chalkboard, a wall of fading photographs, women, children, scribbled first names. In one picture in the corner, Elena, maybe 6 years old, grinning with a missing tooth and cake frosting on her cheek. She didn't even remember that day. But her mother had. Her mother had tried. Elena wept there, not like the woman who ran a shelter or stood before crowds or burned down reputations with her voice. She cried like the girl in the photo, small, loved, lost. When she returned to the blue house, she called a meeting. Staff, residents, volunteers packed into the common room. I have something to tell you, she said. I didn't invent this, I inherited it. From a woman who tried and failed and disappeared inside her own grief. My mother wasn't weak, she was just outnumbered. She paused. But we're not. Applause rippled like thunder. Later that night, Matteo showed her a new mural he'd started sketching. A mother and daughter, facing opposite directions but holding the same blueprint. Elena kissed his cheek. It's perfect. But peace doesn't last. The next blow came quietly. Daniel didn't show up for 2 days. Then a call came from a rehab center across the city. He had checked himself in. Relapsed pills. No overdose, just close enough to scare him sober again. Elena visited him the next day. His face was gray, hollow. I don't know why, he said, staring at the wall. Everything was good, I just felt like I didn't deserve it. She took his hand. You don't have to earn love, she said. You just have to choose not to run from it. He cried silently into his pillow. And Elena didn't promise him it would be okay. She promised she'd wait. Then, just as the Blue House was planning a community event, a block party to honor its first full year, Elena got a call. The bakery's property owner was selling. And the buyer, commercial developer, luxury condo firm. They made an all-cash offer. No interest in shelters or gardens or women who'd stitch their lives back together beneath those bricks. Elena had 30 days. She hung up the phone and stared out the window. One mural, 50 lives, hundreds of stories. She couldn't lose this. She wouldn't. But the cost, more than she had. She needed a miracle. Or a martyr. And she was no stranger to either. The next morning, Elena stood in the garden. Mint leaves brushed her fingertips. The marigolds had wilted slightly in the heat, and the sprinkler sputtered in soft arcs like a tired heartbeat. 30 days. That's all she had before everything she built would be flattened and replaced by glass and steel, and units no one in this neighborhood could afford. The bakery wasn't just a building. It was proof. That healing was possible, that love wasn't a weakness, that starting over didn't have to mean starting alone. She needed a plan. She needed help. But help came from where she least expected. Samira knocked softly on her door that afternoon. She was trembling, but her voice was clear. I've been saving for 3 years in case I ever had to run again. She handed over a check. $10,000. I don't want to run anymore, she said. I want to fight. Elena shook her head, tears already forming. I can't take this. Samira just smiled. You already did the day you let me in. Word spread. One by one, the others came. Matteo sold a painting, the first he'd ever let go, and donated every cent. A retired electrician, once a client, offered to wire the bakery's rooftop for solar panels to attract green grants. Even Carla, still in the middle of legal hell with her ex, showed up with a list of city contacts and whispered, "Use my name, some of them still owe me." Elena stood in the center of the common room, arms full of letters, notes, crumpled bills, and cried like someone who had finally understood the size of the village around her. But it still wasn't enough. Until the envelope came. This one she recognized immediately, gold embossed, thick cardstock. From Gregory. Inside, a contract. He was offering to buy the building from the owner through a separate LLC, then deed it to the Blue House irrevocably. No strings, no conditions. There was a note too. You're not the woman I married, you're better. I spent years trying to control what I didn't understand, but I see you now. This is me stepping out of your way. She stared at it for a long time. Then she signed. And cried. Not for him. For the relief of not losing everything again. The day the papers cleared, Elena walked through every room of the Blue House. She paused at the playroom, the laundry, the mural. Then she climbed to the rooftop where the city stretched out like an ocean and held her breath. She didn't feel victorious. She felt grounded. Like roots had finally grown beneath her feet. Months passed. Daniel came home from rehab stronger, clearer. He now ran the intake desk, always with coffee, always with a joke. Samira enrolled in nursing school. Matteo's work was picked up by a gallery, one that didn't care about his past. The Blue House became something bigger than a shelter. It became a movement. Other women from other cities called, asked for guidance, advice, blueprints. Elena gave everything freely. She never returned to her old life, never wanted to. She no longer fit into marble mansions or fundraising galas. Her wealth wasn't in her bank account anymore. It lived in moments, a woman laughing after months of silence, a child sleeping through the night, the sound of soup simmering and women singing in a language of survival. One day she stood by the mural again. The porcelain woman. Still cracked. Still shining. Someone had added a name to the corner. Margaret. Her mother. Elena touched it gently. And whispered, "We did it."